Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast, C1 Advanced English Listening Practice topic name is The Art of Listening for Humor and Irony. Okay, let's unpack this. How many times have you, found yourself in a conversation just waiting for that pause, that moment you can jump in?
Oh yeah, all the time, right? It's almost a default mode sometimes.
Exactly. We think we're listening, but we're really just planning our next line.
Mm-hmm. And that's really what we want to get into today, moving beyond just passively hearing sounds.
Towards really engaging with what's being said.
Precisely, engaging with those deeper layers. And today we're focusing specifically on, well, some of the most human layers.
Mm-hmm.
Humor and irony.
Ah, okay. Because neglecting those, it really is like that analogy you mentioned, watching a movie in black and white.
It absolutely is. You get the plot, maybe, the basic information.
But you miss all the color, the texture, the wit.
You do. Humor and irony, they're like the essential spices in conversation. They can disarm, they can shed light on tricky subjects.
And communicate things you maybe can't say directly.
Exactly that. They communicate truths that, a really blunt statement might just shut down. So developing an ear for this, it elevates everything.
Turns you from just a hearer into a real participant.
An insightful participant.
Yeah.
Right. So let's start with humor. The basic idea is, something makes you laugh. Simple enough.
On the surface, yeah. But underneath, it gets really interesting, cognitively speaking.
You mentioned this idea of incongruity resolution.
Mm-hmm. That's a key concept. Our brains love patterns, expectations. Humor often works by presenting something unexpected, something that doesn't quite fit.
An incongruity.
Exactly. And the brain then has to sort of resolve that clash, figure out the connection or the twist. And that mental work, that little aha moment, that's where the amusement often comes from.
It's like a mini mental puzzle.
It is. And it provides a bit of cognitive relief and, importantly, social bonding. But humor isn't just one thing, is it?
No, definitely not. And that's crucial for listening because you need to adjust your approach depending on the type. You absolutely do. Your listening posture, as you put it, needs to shift.
Okay, so let's dive into some of those forms. What's first?
Well, a really common one is observational humor. This is all about recognizing those shared experiences, the little quirks of everyday life.
Like complaining about self-checkout machines or finding Tupperware lids.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. The comedian points out something relatable, maybe exaggerates it slightly, and you connect because, well, you've been there. Listening effectively here means tapping into your own experiences.
Relating instantly.
Right. Then you've got self-deprecating humor. This is fascinating because it's often less about the joke itself.
And more about the social effect, like making yourself seem more approachable.
Precisely. It signals humility, builds rapport really quickly. If someone tells that story about, the smoke detector being the only thing excited about their cooking,
yeah.
The listener laughs, sure, but the advanced listener also recognizes the speaker is intentionally lowering their status a bit, making themselves vulnerable to make others comfortable.
That's a really smart social move, actually.
It can be, yeah. Then maybe on the less subtle end, there's slapstick or physical humor.
Which is often visual, obviously. But how does that work for listening?
Well, when someone describes slapstick, a whole sequence of tricks, falls, near misses, the listener has to mentally visualize that chaos.
Ah, okay. You're painting a picture with words.
Exactly. And the listener has to build that picture in their head.
Yep.
It requires a good bit of imagination.
Then there's the really brain-bending stuff, like absurdist humor.
Mm-hmm. This thrives on pure, illogic, surreal situations. It deliberately breaks the rules of sense-making.
Like that example, the sentient teapot becoming a philosophy professor.
Right, because it had deep thoughts brewing. It's nonsensical.
So to get it, you have to just let go of logic.
You have to be willing to suspend disbelief, embrace the ridiculousness for a moment. If you try to analyze it literally, it just, poof, disappears.
Mm. What about the darker side? Dark humor.
Or gallows humor, yeah. This is about finding humor in really serious, often taboo subjects, death, illness, disaster. It's frequently a coping mechanism.
You hear about it in stressful professions like medicine or the military.
Definitely. Someone might make a bleak joke about a terrible situation. Now, listening here requires extreme sensitivity.
Because the line between funny and offensive is razor thin.
Incredibly thin. You have to instantly assess the context. Is this person coping? Is there shared understanding in the group? Or is it just being cruel? Get it wrong, and it's disastrous.
Context is king there.
Always. And that leads us nicely into satire. This is humor with a purpose, often a sharp one.
It's using wit as a weapon, almost, to criticize something.
Exactly. It uses irony, exaggeration, ridicule to expose flaws, hypocrisies often in politics or society or institutions.
So listening to satire isn't just about laughing.
Not at all. Your main job as a listener is detection. You have to look through the surface joke to see what's actually being critiqued. What's the real target?
You're listening for the underlying message.
And connecting all these types really is what we can call the trinity of humor detection. No joke works without these three.
Okay, what are they?
Context, tone, and delivery. Miss one, and the whole thing can fall apart.
Right. Context is the background, the situation, who's talking to whom, your shared history.
Yeah. If someone makes a quip about that disastrous camping trip, it only works if you both remember how awful it was. Without that shared context, the words mean nothing.
Makes sense. Then tone.
Tone is the music of the voice, the pitch, the speed, the little inflections. It carries the emotional meaning, the speaker's attitude.
We usually process it subconsciously, but for humor, we need to be more aware.
We really do. Is the tone light? Is it sarcastic? Is it serious underneath? Those nuances are critical.
And finally, delivery. This is the nonverbal stuff.
Mostly, yeah. Timing is huge. That perfect pause before the punchline.
The pregnant pause.
Exactly. Or facial expressions, a wink, a smirk, an eye roll. Even just how quickly or slowly someone speaks. It all shapes how the humor lands.
So let's take that example phrase. That was a brilliant idea.
Okay. Said sincerely, after a success, maybe with a genuine smile, enthusiastic tone, it's a compliment.
Right. But say it after a total disaster.
Yeah. Draw out the word brilliant, maybe raise your eyebrows, slight eye roll, same words, totally opposite meaning.
Mockery or sarcasm.
Precisely. The tone and delivery completely flipped the literal meaning.
Which brings us back to culture, doesn't it? Because how you interpret those tones and deliveries can be very cultural.
Hugely cultural. What's considered funny, what's taboo, what level of exaggeration is normal. It varies enormously.
Inside jokes, pop culture references.
All of it. You need that shared cultural knowledge. A good listener is always kind of running that cultural filter, asking, okay, what's the norm here? How does this fit?
It requires cultural empathy, really.
It does. You have to be willing to see it from the other perspective to really appreciate the wit. Okay, so if humor is the playground, irony. Irony is more like a labyrinth.
Huh. I like that. It implies it's trickier and needs more careful navigation.
I think it often does. Decoding irony really requires you to actively question the literal surface of what's being said. You have to look for the gap.
The gap between
what's said and what's meant, or between what's expected and what actually happens. Irony fundamentally plays with disparity, with contrast.
And getting that contrast, spotting the gap, that feels intellectually satisfying, doesn't it?
It really does. It's like solving a little code. It confirms your perceptive. You could read between the lines.
Okay, so how do we approach this labyrinth? Are there different types of irony to listen for?
There are generally three main types identified, though for active conversation, one is definitely the most important.
Let's hear them.
First, and the key one for us, is verbal irony. This is when someone deliberately says one thing but clearly means the opposite.
Like walking into pouring rain and saying, lovely weather we're having.
Classic example, everyone knows you don't mean it's lovely. The statement's purpose is to highlight how not lovely the weather is. It's intentionally contradictory.
Got it. What are the others?
Second is situational irony. This isn't about what someone says, but about a contrast between what you'd expect to happen in a situation and what actually does.
Like the classic example of a fire station burning down.
Exactly. The expectation is safety and fire prevention. The reality is the opposite. The irony lies in the situation itself. Your job as an observer is just to recognize that unexpected contrast.
Makes sense. And the third?
That's dramatic irony. You mostly find this in stories, plays, movies. It's when the audience knows something important that a character in the story doesn't know.
Like in Romeo and Juliet, we know Juliet isn't really dead, but Romeo doesn't.
Perfect example. That knowledge gap creates tension and meaning for the audience. While it's not directly conversational, understanding it helps build that mental skill of holding contrasting realities, what the character thinks versus what is.
Okay, so for our listening skills and actual conversations, we're really focusing on that verbal irony.
Primarily, yes. And detecting it hinges massively on the crucial role of cues. You can't just rely on the words.
You have to listen with your eyes and ears, as you said earlier.
Absolutely. The single most important cue is often the tone of voice. You're listening for that incongruity again.
A mismatch between the words and the sound.
Exactly. Is the tone flat or deadpan when saying something supposedly exciting? Is it overly cheerful when discussing bad news? That mismatch is a huge red flag saying don't take this literally.
And facial expressions back this up.
Often, yes. They're the visual confirmation. A quick raised eyebrow signaling doubt. A tiny smirk suggesting a hidden layer of meaning.
Or trying really hard not to react, keeping a straight face while saying something absurd.
That too. That blankness can be just as telling. An advanced listener picks up on these micro-expressions almost instantly.
And body language. Less obvious, maybe.
Can be subtle, yeah. A little shrug when saying something definite, or maybe a very relaxed posture when talking about something supposedly stressful. It's about the whole package. Does the body confirm or contradict the words?
So you're constantly integrating all these signals, voice, face, body, against the words themselves.
Mm-hmm. And speakers often help us out by using specific verbal strategies too, little telltale signals to flag their ironic intent.
Like what sort of strategies?
Well, exaggeration or hyperbole is a big one. Taking a simple situation and blowing it way out of proportion.
Like saying your whole week is utterly and tragically ruined because you missed the bus.
Exactly. The sheer over-the-top language makes it clear you don't literally mean your week is ruined. It signals irony about the minor inconvenience.
Okay. And the opposite?
Understatement or meiosis. Dramatically downplaying something significant.
Like surviving a plane crash and calling it a bit of a bumpy landing.
Precisely. The extreme minimizing highlights the actual severity. The listener hears the simple phrase, compares it to the known reality, and spots the ironic gap.
And you mentioned flat, deadpan delivery before, too.
Yes, it's powerful for irony. Delivering something ridiculous or contradictory with absolutely zero emotion. That lack of expected feeling is the signal. It forces you to think, why do they sound so detached from what they're saying?
It really highlights the absurdity.
It does. And, successfully decoding all this, there's a real intellectual pleasure in it.
Because you feel like you cracked the code.
Yeah. It validates your ability to see beneath the surface. It feels good to get it.
And it creates a connection with the speaker, too, right? Like you're both in on the secret.
Absolutely. It fosters this sense of shared understanding, camaraderie. You're both operating on that higher level. Because it is cognitively demanding, you have to suppress the literal meaning and find the intended one. Succeeding feels rewarding.
Builds a kind of insider status.
It really can. It's a subtle but powerful way to build rapport based on shared wit.
Okay, so we know humor and irony rely on these cues and contexts, but how do we, actively train ourselves to catch them? How do we move from just hearing to really analyzing? We need that mental irony radar you mentioned.
Right. It's about knowing what specific things to tune into. We can break it down. Let's start again with tone and inflection nuances, but go a bit deeper.
Beyond just noticing if the tone is off.
Yeah, analyzing the how. Listen specifically for that exaggerated mismatch. Is the voice sickly sweet when talking about something awful, or deeply mournful about running out of coffee?
That extreme contrast is the giveaway.
It's a huge clue. Also, listen for mock seriousness or sincerity. Does the tone sound too formal, too earnest for the situation? Like they're putting on a voice.
Which signals they're probably mocking the seriousness itself.
Often, yes. And pay super close attention to vocal emphasis. Where does the stress fall in the sentence? Think about, you really think that's a good idea, versus you really think that's a good idea.
Completely different implications based on where the stress is. One doubts the thinking, the other doubts the idea itself.
Exactly. That targeted stress directs your interpretation. It's a deliberate choice by the speaker.
Okay, so beyond tone, what about the words themselves? Word choice.
This is where your vocabulary and understanding of register come in. You're listening for deliberate deviations from expected language. Look for loaded language used ironically. Words with strong positive or negative connotations, like thrilling, paradise, disaster, genius, calling a really boring meeting an absolutely electrifying exchange of ideas.
The loaded word electrifying signals the opposite.
Right. Another fun one is juxtaposition, mixing styles, using very formal, almost pseudo-academic language for something mundane.
Like saying you're commencing nutritional intake instead of I'm going to eat lunch.
Yeah, exactly. Or mixing high-register words with slang. That clash of styles is often a deliberate signal.
So you need to recognize when a word feels off or out of place.
You do. Your internal sense of normal language for that context gets pinged. That little friction tells you to look closer, is this irony.
This all seems heavily reliant on contextual cues too. the implied stuff?
Absolutely essential.
Yeah.
You can't decode irony in a vacuum. You constantly need to draw on shared history. Is this an inside joke? Does it refer back to something only we know?
Without that history, you're lost.
Completely.
Yeah.
And you also need to consider the speaker's known personality. Are they naturally dry and sarcastic, or usually very literal?
You use their usual style as a baseline.
Deviations from their norm are particularly significant.
Yeah.
If a normally serious person makes a wildly ironic statement, it carries extra weight.
What about the rhythm, pauses, and timing?
Crucial. Wit has a rhythm. We mentioned the pregnant pause before. That deliberate silence builds tension right before the ironic line or punchline hits.
It makes you lean in, waiting for it.
It does. Also, listen for deliberate slowing. Sometimes a speaker will slow down and really enunciate a specific word or phrase they intend ironically.
To make sure you notice that word?
Exactly. They're using timing to spotlight the key element. You have to listen to the music, not just the lyrics.
So fundamentally, this whole toolkit is about spotting contradictions and absurdity.
That's the core mental process, yes.
Yeah.
It's a constant comparison. What are they saying? What's the reality I know or see? Is there a gap?
And the gap can be internal to what they're saying.
Right, like, I'm a devoted minimalist, which is why I collect antique spoons. The statement contradicts itself.
Or external, the gap between the statement and the world.
Yeah. The person standing drenched in rain saying, perfectly dry, thanks. The words clash, obviously, with the visible reality. Your radar should be constantly scanning for those mismatches. So you might be thinking, this sounds like a lot of work. Why bother putting in all this effort to decode jokes and irony?
Right. What's the real payoff beyond just, getting the joke?
Well, if we connect it to the bigger picture, the benefits are actually pretty profound. It's an investment in your overall communication skills.
Starting with, I imagine, just being better in social situations, enhance social intelligence.
Absolutely. Understanding humor and irony means you're grasping subtext, unspoken feelings, hidden intentions. That's critical for navigating tricky social dynamics, both personally and professionally.
You can sort of read the room better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can figure out group dynamics, who's in on the joke, what the underlying mood is. And crucially, you avoid those awkward missteps where you take an ironic comment literally and cause offense or confusion.
Yeah, that can be painful.
It can. And beyond just avoiding mistakes, it actively builds deeper connections and rapport.
Because shared laughter connects people.
It really does. It's a powerful bonding agent. When you share an ironic glance with someone or laugh together at a witty observation, it creates an instant we get each other feeling.
Especially among friends, right? That kind of banter.
That playful, ironic teasing between close friends. It's often a sign of deep trust and comfort. It says, we know each other well enough to play like this. It reduces distance.
Okay, interesting. What about trickier situations? Can this help with conflict de-escalation?
It potentially can, but this needs huge caution. Used skillfully, appropriate humor, especially self-deprecating humor, can sometimes act like a circuit breaker in a tense moment.
Lowering the temperature a bit.
Yeah, reducing the emotional charge. And sometimes, a well-placed, gentle, ironic comment can highlight the absurdity of a conflict without being directly confrontational.
Like pointing out you're arguing fiercely over something tiny.
Kind of. It invites perspective. But, and this is critical, it has to be done with immense judgment. The wrong joke or irony that sounds like sarcasm can make things much, much worse.
Handle with care, then.
Definitely. Another big benefit is improved empathy and understanding.
How so?
Well, to figure out what someone really means when they're being ironic, you often have to consider their underlying feelings, frustration maybe, or stress, or disappointment.
You have to step into their shoes for a moment.
You do. You engage in perspective taking. And recognizing that humor, especially dark humor, can be a coping mechanism. It helps you detect unstated emotions. You become more sensitive to the full picture of what someone might be going through.
So you're understanding them on a deeper level than just their words.
Exactly. And finally, there's a real cognitive agility benefit, a mental workout.
Because your brain is doing that switching thing, literal versus non-literal.
Processing irony requires mental flexibility. You have to inhibit the first obvious meaning and activate the second intended one. That's complex.
Like flexing a mental muscle.
It is. It's like constant little problem-solving tasks. It strengthens your pattern recognition, your ability to handle ambiguity, and process complex information quickly. It genuinely keeps your mind sharp.
Okay, but let's be real. This isn't always easy. The same subtlety that makes humor and irony powerful also makes them, well, really easy to mess up or misunderstand.
Oh, absolutely. The potential for misinterpretation is huge. Understanding the pitfalls is just as important as knowing the cues.
And the first big one has to be the cultural minefield, right?
Definitely. We touched on it, but it's worth stressing. What one culture finds hilarious, another might find baffling or offensive. Sensibilities differ wildly.
British understatement versus American observational comedy, for example.
Right. Or think about taboo subjects. What's fair game for satire in one place might be completely off limits elsewhere. Religion, politics, historical events.
So as a listener, you constantly need that cultural awareness filter switched on.
You do. You have to ask yourself, am I missing a cultural reference here? Is there a norm I don't understand that makes this funny or okay in this context? It requires active cultural empathy.
Okay. Another tricky area seems to be distinguishing irony versus sarcasm. They're related, but not the same.
They're not. Irony is the linguistic tool, the gap between saying and meaning. Sarcasm uses irony, but with a specific, usually negative intent.
The intent to mock or wound or show contempt?
Exactly. Sarcasm is irony weaponized. Saying nice job to someone who just spilled coffee everywhere might be playful irony between friends.
But said with a sneer by a rival, it's sarcasm. It's meant to sting.
Precisely. And the listener's challenge is to detect that intent. Is it lighthearted banter, or is there genuine hostility behind it? The tone, the sharpness, the context, they're key.
Because mistaking real sarcasm for just a joke means you miss the underlying aggression.
Yes. And that can be damaging. Aggressive sarcasm erodes trust. If you just laugh it off, you're not addressing the actual conflict or negativity. You need to read the intent behind the irony.
Right. Probably the most common issue, though, is just missing cues altogether, taking it literally.
It happens all the time. It's usually a failure of attention or context, not language skill.
Like your example, speaker says, well, that meeting went swimmingly, after it was clearly a disaster.
And the listener earnestly asks, oh, good. What were the key successes?
Cringe. Total mismatch.
Total mismatch. And it often happens because we're distracted, we miss the eye roll or the flat tone, or we lack the background context that the project is failing. Or sometimes we're just tired or stressed. High cognitive load makes subtle processing harder.
So the solution is just more vigilance. Question the literal if it feels weird.
Pretty much. If a statement seems really out of sync with the known reality, pause. Activate the irony radar. And if you're genuinely unsure, maybe a neutral response is best. That's one perspective on it.
Okay. What about the digital challenge? Text, email, no tone, no face.
Oh, that's a huge one today. All those crucial nonverbal cues, gone. Completely stripped away.
We try to use emojis or punctuation, but it's not the same.
Not even close. They're blunt instruments compared to vocal nuance. So the rule in digital communication, especially professionally, assume literal meaning unless the irony is heavily signposted, like massive exaggeration or maybe a winking emoji if you know the person well.
Better safe than sorry, basically.
Absolutely. The potential for misunderstanding online is massive.
So what if you do misunderstand? You take something literally that was meant ironically, or vice versa. How to recover?
The key is humility, not defensiveness. If you realize you missed it, just acknowledge it simply.
Like, I got it. You're being ironic there. Went over my head for a second.
Exactly. Something like that shows you were listening, you just misread the signals. It happens. Don't double down or get embarrassed. Use it as a learning moment. Okay, What cues did I miss? How can I spot that next time?
Turn the mistake into data for the radar.
Precisely. Which leads us to the really practical question. Okay, how do we actually build this skill? It's not enough just to know the theory. We need to practice. How do we strengthen that listening muscle?
Right. What are some concrete things you can do? It starts with just day-to-day listening, I suppose.
Definitely. The absolute foundation is practicing active listening daily. Make it conscious. Turn on that humor, irony, watch mode in your regular conversations.
Treat interactions as training opportunities.
Yes. Actively listen for those tone-word mismatches. When something sounds slightly off or incongruous, consciously question the literal meaning. Don't just let it float by.
And maybe reflect afterwards.
That's crucial. Post-conversation reflection. Take a minute later and mentally replay moments where you noticed humor or irony, or where you think you might have missed it. What were the specific cues, the tone shift, the word choice, the context that made it work, or that you overlooked?
Analyzing your own experience.
That metacognition really helps solidify the patterns. Another great exercise is analyzing comedic performances.
Watching stand-up or sitcoms, but with a purpose.
Exactly. Don't just watch for laughs. Study it. Break down the structure. How they set up the joke. Where was the pause? What was the punchline? What did they do with their voice, face, timing?
You could even try focusing on one element at a time.
That's a fantastic technique. Watch a clip just listening for tone. Then watch again focusing only on facial expressions. Go again for word choice. Isolate the components.
What about listening without visuals, like comedy podcasts?
Even better for honing auditory skills, the auditory test. When you only have the voice, you become much more attuned to subtle pitch changes, speed variations, the impact of pauses. It forces reliance on those vocal cues.
Okay. What about written irony?
Great point. Reading satirical articles is excellent practice. Find publications known for satire like The Onion, perhaps, or similar things in your own culture.
And read them actively.
Yes. Identify the target. What aspect of society or politics is being mocked? Then analyze how they do it. Where is the exaggeration? How does the literal absurdity point to the real underlying critique? It sharpens your ability to detect that gap between surface and meaning, even in writing.
So we're building up this internal database, this irony radar.
That's the goal. You can even consciously make lists. What phrases are almost always ironic in your language or region? Bless your heart, in some parts of the U.S., for instance.
Can mean anything from genuine sympathy to you're an idiot.
Exactly. Knowing the context for those loaded phrases is key. Another useful thing is to experiment with delivery yourself, maybe just in private.
How would that help listening?
Take a neutral sentence like, "It's a nice day." Try saying it with a really sarcastic tone. Then sadly, then angrily, then genuinely happily. Playing with the production helps you recognize the craft when others use it. You understand the mechanics better.
Ah, I see. Become the speaker to understand the listener's task.
Something like that. And finally, if you decide to try using more humor or irony yourself, practice responsible use, starting with low-stakes experimentation.
Don't jump into edgy satire at work on day one.
Please don't. Start small, maybe with gentle, self-deprecating humor among friends you trust.
And pay close attention to the reaction.
Critically important. Gauge the response. Did it land well? Did it build connection? Or did it create awkwardness, or worse, offense? Always check your intent. Humor should connect, build bridges, offer insight or relief. It shouldn't be used to wound or exclude.
Use your powers for good.
Essentially, yes. It's a skill that comes with responsibility. #tag outro.
Well, this has been fascinating. It really highlights how much sophisticated processing goes into understanding something we often take for granted, like a simple joke or an ironic comment.
It really does. It transforms listening from a passive activity into a deeply active, interpretive art form.
And mastering that art, as we've discussed, enhances everything: your social intelligence, your connections, even your own cognitive flexibility. It's about choosing to be truly present and curious in conversations.
It's about engaging with the full richness of human communication.
We hope this deep dive has been helpful in cultivating your C1 advanced English listening skills. If you enjoyed this analysis, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel.